guess I should say howdy to all you horrible people who live in Milwaukee. Yeah, you're just horrible. No, you're horrible because, election fraud, which, when you check the actual data and record, there's actually an infinitesimally small, less than 0.0001% in terms of election fraud that has occurred in Milwaukee. But, yeah, there's actually more election fraud that occurred in the village community in Florida than Milwaukee in the 2020 election. That's a fact, according to the statistics. But don't let facts get in the way. No, actually, Milwaukee, you're horrible because of the crime. You're all criminals. According to the statistics, Milwaukee County, there's 550,000 plus of you who live in Milwaukee, the city. And all 550,000 of you, you're criminals, according to the former president. Now, we know why they say these things, There is a reason. A lot of people don't want to acknowledge what the reason is, but there is a reason. The first reason is that, in large part, people who live in major metropolitan cities across America do not vote for the Republicans, and for good reasons. The Republicans don't support people who live in cities. Their presumptive nominee in 2024, just like their presidential nominee in 2020 and 2016, the same person, in fact, has said many disparaging things about many people who live in our major metropolitan cities. I think he said something to the extent of there's not a lot of nice things that happen in Philadelphia. We know every time Fox News and conservative influencers talk about Chicago, it's always in regards to the gang violence. Never about the good deep dish pizza you can find in Chicago. I guarantee you, more people live and visit Chicago who have wonderful and positive experiences than the folks who are impacted by gun violence. Now, is gun violence an issue in Chicago? Absolutely. But it's an issue that affects the whole entire nation. Gun violence is a ginormous issue in Alabama. Although you never hear Fox News talk about gun violence in Alabama. Gun violence is an enormous issue in Mississippi. Although you never hear Fox News talk about gun violence in Mississippi. Gun violence is a huge problem in Texas. You'll never hear Fox News talk about gun violence in Texas. Currently, right now, in the year 2024, June, Florida leads the nation in mass shootings. Does that make Florida a horrible place? So if this commentary was just in regards to election fraud, which happens in Texas, Florida, Alabama, Mississippi, Tennessee, Arkansas, if this commentary was just in regards to crime, that doesn't make too much sense either. Trump Organization is headquartered in New York City. Now ask yourself, and be honest, is New York City void of all crime? Come on now. So the rationale and the excuses as to why the former president declared Milwaukee to be a horrible city continue. You know, they just cannot be honest. Now I can speculate, because you can't read people's minds exactly, but I can speculate why they think that Milwaukee is a horrible city. Second reason being that, it's a very diverse city. And we know that the Republican Party in 2024 is against diversity, equity, and inclusion, right? They're on the record in Washington, D.C., many of their legislators saying that they want to, in fact, even get rid of DEI in the federal government. J.D. Vance, who's a senator out in Ohio, said that he wants to do away with DEI in the federal government. Meaning that he doesn't want anybody from the BIPOC community working as a federal employee. Yeah. He doesn't want black and indigenous people of color, to work in the federal government. He doesn't believe in diversity. So it wouldn't be a stretch for me to think that these folks just don't like Milwaukee because it's diverse. Huge Asian American population, huge Latino population, oversized black population. Yeah. I think they don't like Milwaukee because of the diversity. And so the former president apparently was in Racine yesterday or this past evening. And, he declared his love for Wisconsin and Milwaukee. Now, Milwaukee, remember, this year in particular, we're not listening to what liars have to say. Because they say a lot of different things when they get caught lying, right? We know that's generally how they operate. At first, he said that he didn't say it. He said that the media made up that. He never said Milwaukee was a horrible city. The media made it up. Now, the context of that is simple. This was a closed-door Republican strategy session concerning how they're going to operate for the remainder of the 2024 election cycle. Think about that, Milwaukee, because they're targeting you in an adverse manner. In their strategy session, their presumptive nominee made it clear that he has a deep disdain for you who live in Milwaukee County and who live in the city. Straight up to your face said you're horrible people. Yeah, I don't know. Couldn't be more obvious and apparent than that. And now, he's trying to act as though, he cares about Wisconsin as a state. I don't think people in Wisconsin are buying it. I know they have a deep disdain in Milwaukee, but I think it spreads further than just the city. Because look at what he did when he was president. It's definitely more than Milwaukee. It's Kenosha too. For sure it's Kenosha. Because Kenosha was in the news when Donald Trump was president in 2020. You all remember how Kyle Rittenhouse, aka Rottenhouse, decided he was going to meet up with a group of white supremacists and they were going to transport him from his little small town in Illinois and drive him to Kenosha, and he was going to pretend to be a medic, provide medical assistance at a Black Lives Matter rally, when in fact he took an AR-15, stole an AR-15 gun, and ended up murdering 2 people at that rally that night in August of 2020. You all remember that? Now, do you remember what the president at that time, Donald Trump, did next? Did he seek to, come to Kenosha and do as then former Vice President Biden did and come and speak to folks and advocate for healing of Kenosha in that community? Did he do that while he was president? No. He decided that he wanted to take a stage photograph with a serial killer and give the thumbs up. To me, that was a message to Kenosha, to Milwaukee, to all the people of color who live in the state of Wisconsin, that your life, your existence does not matter. Because what people were saying in 2020 was Black Lives Matter. And here was someone who was a minor at the time, driven by other white supremacists, grown-ass men, to a location he did not live in, and allowed to freely roam the streets and murder 2 people, and then be driven home, and then to have the president at that time meet with you and give you the thumbs up, and for that photo to come out. Yeah. Deep disdain. Deep, deep, deep disdain. And hatred. Yeah, the ill will and malice towards y'all up in Milwaukee is, I'm telling you, it's through the roof. They really don't like Milwaukee. I love Milwaukee. I've been there multiple times. It's a great city. Yeah. Green Bay, all those places. Madison. Madison is actually pretty much mini Seattle, just in the Midwest, and a little bit colder. Well, a lot colder during the wintertime. Summertime is kind of like Seattle in Madison, Wisconsin. Yeah. I think they might outdrink us because it's a college town. They might outdrink us in Madison. They definitely eat more cheese than us. But yeah, it's kind of one of our sister cities. It's similar in terms of, structural dynamics too. Madison and Seattle are both surrounded by water. A lot of people don't know that. So, the failures don't just stop with Rittenhouse in terms of Donald Trump in Wisconsin. Former President Barack Obama famously said that, if he had a magic wand, he could probably bring back manufacturing jobs to the Midwest. But outside of that, it was going to be difficult. And this was a comment that, Donald Trump, one of his sons, picked up on and ran with repeatedly for years. how former President Barack Obama neglected Wisconsin in terms of manufacturing. He said Barack Obama went around saying if he had a magic wand, he could bring back manufacturing, but he was unable to do it. Now, bear in mind that Barack Obama has saved the whole entire American auto industry, which, if you're talking about the Midwest at large, a lot of auto supply parts are manufactured in Wisconsin. They get transported to Michigan to make those cars. You know, it's a whole regional type of situation. A lot of people who work in the auto industry, many of them traverse from Wisconsin to Michigan, to Illinois, to make cars. Yeah? So it's an economic driver of the region. But one of the biggest, con artist events that took place during the Trump administration was this, whole notion that a huge Foxconn company was going to build this large facility, this large plant in Wisconsin. And it was going to create all of these manufacturing jobs, 10,000, the Trump administration estimated. And you saw the former president go and with a golden shovel and break ground. The only problem was Foxconn never came to Wisconsin. They never built the factory that Donald Trump promised the citizens of Wisconsin that it would be built. It was just one of many promises that his administration made, that they didn't keep. One of many. And so for Don Jr. to run around and say, disparage a former president in Barack Obama and try to act as though the former president didn't want to bring back manufacturing and that his father had the magic solution. You notice how he's very quiet about the Foxconn debauchery situation that occurred in Wisconsin. They don't talk about it. In fact, it's so bad that, Microsoft decided they were going to build a smaller type of facility at the same location under the Biden-Harris administration. And those jobs, it would create about 2,000 something jobs in Wisconsin. And our current president, he's highlighted that's one of the most ginormous failures of the previous administration. That all of these manufacturing jobs, remember this was a hallmark of Donald Trump's candidacy in 2016 against Hillary Clinton. That Barack Obama wasn't able to bring back manufacturing jobs, and that Hillary Clinton wasn't going to be able to do it, and that he was going to bring back all of these jobs in the Midwest. And really the only thing that folks saw in the Midwest under Donald Trump was division, violence, racial animosity. Hate crimes soared by 3,000% starting in 2019 and just going into warp speed in 2020. And what a lot of people don't want to acknowledge or say or talk about is that in places like Wisconsin, hate crimes were soaring under the Trump administration. That's why you had a situation like Jacob Blake happen in Kenosha. There were a lot of situations happening. Yeah, a lot. All across our country. From Maine to Wisconsin, hate crimes were soaring in our country. And you had an administration that never spoke to it, but definitely stoked it. Taking photos with Rittenhouse after he murdered two folks in Kenosha. Not getting and providing justice for Breonna Taylor's family. That didn't happen until the Biden-Harris administration. This is a fact. The Trump Department of Justice knew that there was officers who were working with LMPD in Kentucky who covered up, lied, distorted that police report. And yet Trump's Department of Justice did not investigate and get justice for Breonna Taylor. Had we not had Biden and Harris as our president and vice president, Breonna Taylor's family would still, to this very day, not have justice. That's what I firmly believe. Yeah. Because they weren't about to get justice under the Trump administration. Ahmaud Arbery's family wasn't going to get justice under the Trump administration. Look how long it took for them to charge the McMichaels. How they were trying to cover that up in Brunswick, Georgia. Huh? And when the American citizenry saw what happened to George Floyd, what did the president at the time, Donald Trump, do? Well, he decided and suggested that the best course of action was to call the folks who were by the millions protesting for racial justice. He decided to call them domestic terrorists. Decided to trample on, states and local municipalities, jurisdictions, with a heavy-handed weaponization of the federal branch of government to quell largely peaceful demonstrations and protests all across the country. We saw what they did to that elderly man in Buffalo, where they pushed him to the ground and cracked open his head. We saw all of this. We saw he sent his goon squads to Portland and Mammoth County and what they did. Let me tell you something. We are never, ever, ever, ever going to forget the horrendous nightmare of the Trump administration. We don't care how much lipstick on a pig the fascists, the Christian nationalists, and MAGA want to try to, rewrite, whitewash his administration. We saw it. We lived through it. We experienced it. It was an utter nightmare. Period. End of story. No, I didn't vote for him in 2016. I didn't vote for him in 2020. And you most definitely know I'm not going to vote for him in 2024. All 3 times he's been on the ballot, I've been proud to be in fierce opposition to that. Because I knew what it was from Jump Street. Donald Trump didn't just run for president in 2016. He's been running for president for quite some time. He's ran in the Libertarian Party, the Reform Party. He was like Pat Buchanan. To me, that's the most accurate comparison of Donald Trump. You remember all of the bigoted and kind of crazy, outlandishly racist things Pat Buchanan used to say? That's Donald Trump. And it would have been like electing Pat Buchanan to be president, what the election of Donald Trump was in 2016. And so, this whole notion that somehow now the former president is some ally or friend of Wisconsin and folks who live in this state, that couldn't be further from the truth. Yeah. The community that remembers and experienced the trauma and the nightmare of Donald Trump, more so than many other communities across our country, is Kenosha, Wisconsin. It's not just that he has an issue with Milwaukee, with Madison. It's the fact that people endured and lived under the trauma and nightmare of Donald Trump in Kenosha. People saw it firsthand. And that's why I strongly speculate, we won't know until November the 5th this year, but I strongly speculate that the people of Wisconsin are not buying his bullshit. I don't buy it. I'm not buying into the polls. No, I don't buy that kind of stuff. You all can dabble in that if you want to. I'm going to be more focused on ensuring that horrendous monster never gets near 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue ever again. He should be in prison. That's where he should be for what he did to this country and for what he did to large swaths of our citizenry. That's where he belongs, in prison. But folks like him tend to have a certain amount of privilege. Also something that conservatives deny, but in his case is clearly abundant. You venture to guess how many folks can get away with inciting an insurrection? A mob of their own fellow citizens to go to the nation's Capitol building and assault the Metropolitan Police Force in D.C., break out windows with axe picks of the Capitol building, ransack and steal things, look for legislators to impale with flagpoles. You venture to guess how many people would be still walking and roaming the streets? Have they orchestrated an elaborate scheme to do such a thing? No, nobody. Nobody. Look here. If I or many of you watching this sneezed the wrong way, you know what they would do. Without hesitation. So, spare us the whole, it's a timely process and we have to, go about doing this the proper way. No. We know why. But you can keep spinning your wheels and pretending like we don't. But we know exactly why. Well, what they're counting on is mass apathy and complacency in Milwaukee. And a lot of people are, checked out. A lot of people are frustrated, upset, angry. they haven't gotten what they needed for what they've gone through. This is a fact. And there's a sentiment amongst a good number of people that the political process is not going to be the way that these kind of matters are going to be resolved. Yeah. That's a large sentiment amongst the people. And only time will tell if that's true or not, but I definitely think when options are presented in front of us that we should take advantage of. We have a hugely, ginormously important election, not just for president, but for a lot of these positions. State Senate, school board, senator. Many of your Congress members, if not all of them, are up for re-election in 2024. So this is a time when we can institute great change. We can get rid of some of the, stale, feeble-minded, old world kind of legislators we have in office currently. And we can send a new crop of people. I think there's ample appetite for that. You saw there was a special election for a Supreme Court seat that was statewide. And what was supposed to be a close race was a blowout. Now, it doesn't compute to me that all the people who voted for that woman who recently became a Supreme Court justice, whom many conservative activists labeled as liberal and out in the mainstream, but folks all throughout Wisconsin voted for her. It doesn't strike me as that same exact population is going to turn around and want to return to the nightmare that was Donald Trump as President of the United States. This is just not computing. I believe there's an orchestrated campaign afoot by conservative influencers and people who are wealthy financiers to try to do two things: disenfranchise minority voters and create a lot of apathy and complacency. To me, the whole vote for the couch that you see on the internet is, I believe, in large part, orchestrated by external forces who are opposed to racial justice in America. Because the best and greatest thing that they would have advocated for people is to not participate in the system. That way their friends can continue to be elected. They can continue to provide policies that are not in line with what their constituents really actually truly want. Yeah. All whilst enriching themselves on your taxpayer dime. So, the couch, I tell people, if it's the couch or Project 2025, I choose neither in 2024. Yeah. Yeah, Project 2025 has severe ramifications for Milwaukee for Madison, for Kenosha, for Racine, and for the whole entire state of Wisconsin. It has severe ramifications. They've said they're going to round up 15 million people. I would imagine there's a lot of people in the Latino community in Milwaukee, in Wisconsin, who might know someone who's undocumented or on a temporary visa. Do you really think that a bigot, a hater, and all the people who are going to potentially work in an administration for a man like Donald Trump would be willing and able to distinguish between who's technically legal and who's technically undocumented and shouldn't be in the country? Do you think there'd be any clear distinction? It's my firm belief that many American citizens would be rounded up. Yeah. I don't know if you all have listened to it, but Rachel Maddow opined about one of her fears if Donald Trump is reelected, that she herself would wind up in a concentration camp. Oh, I know they would exterminate or try to murder myself. That's predicated on they tried to do it already when he was president. Yeah, there were credible assassination attempts against myself and many others. Many people. Many people. And many folks did lose their life. Rest in peace to Summer Taylor, who was one of our cherished individuals here in our city. Lost their life in defense of, racial justice in our republic. But Summer was just one of many folks who gave the ultimate sacrifice in defense of this nation, democracy, and the real principles of our republic against a tyrannical lunatic and his administration. Yeah. Heather Heyer in Charlottesville. Rest in peace to Heather, who gave her life. Yeah. We're not going to forget this. We haven't all this time. They're counting on mass amnesia. Maybe they think that's a symptom of coronavirus. For some, I'm sure it is. For others, it's just about whitewashing, which has long been, an issue in this republic. One of the biggest kind of concerns that everyone should have, especially folks in Milwaukee, is that the former president is on the record saying that he's going to pardon all the folks in regards to that January 6th insurrection. That does not bode well for us, Milwaukee. And, I know the campaign hasn't fully gotten underway, but there needs to be an effort, serious effort made to share why that does not bode well for Milwaukee. Think about it. Here was a group of people by the thousands who decided they didn't want folks in Milwaukee to have their votes counted. They didn't want people who lived in Philadelphia to have their votes counted. They didn't want people who lived in Atlanta, Fullerton County, Gwinnett County, Cobb County. They didn't want those folks to have their votes counted. They didn't want folks who lived in Maricopa County to have their votes counted in 2020. Now, it just so happens that all those locations and places I mentioned have a very diverse population of people. So they didn't want people of color, in large part, to have any determination about who should be their leader for their nation in 2020. And that mob of sick, deranged people decided that because they didn't get the outcome they wanted in 2020, they were going to toss a grenade into the whole electoral process in America. Yeah. This is what they did. And so now, the former president is saying they're political hostages. Well, they decided they wanted to attack the nation, right? If you want to overthrow the government, you can't complain if the government decides to win and beat you. It is what it is. They made their choice and they lost. Yeah, they're losers. They got to hold that L. Well, Milwaukee, did you see what I saw? There was an individual from Delaware. I know the individual's name. I don't care to repeat his name. He's a fucking disgrace. There was an individual from Delaware who went to the Capitol, got inside the Capitol Rotunda with a Confederate flag. Never before in our nation's history had the Confederate flag ever been brought inside of our nation's capital until Donald Trump was president. It's clear as day what messages he was sending and what messages they were sending. It's clear as day. Not under Lincoln during the Civil War did the Confederate flag get into our capital. Not under Eisenhower. Not under Roosevelt. Not under Nixon. Not under Bush. Not under Obama. Not under Clinton. So we had 45 presidents, and that flag had never gotten into our capital until Donald Trump came along. We're never going to forget, and we're never going to forgive. Yeah, we're never going to forget. Milwaukee, he wants to pardon all those folks. Who do you think, once they purge the federal government, Vivek Ramaswamy already told you all what he wants to do. They want to purge all of the federal employees who have, odd ending Social Security numbers. Now I said, wait a minute, this is sort of kind of an odd kind of way of determining who gets fired from the federal government, basing it on their Social Security numbers and whether they end in an odd number. It just so happens, you'll never get this or believe this, Milwaukee. It just so happens that the vast majority of people who have an odd ending Social Security number are black in America. Yeah. Apparently, it goes that people who have an even ending number are generally white Americans, and people who have an odd ending Social Security number are generally black Americans. Everything they do in this republic is predicated on racism, right? Oh no, I can't say that because, I'm being racist if I tell the truth about how racist the republic is. This is what they do. Complete and utter gaslighting. It's been a thing since, 1619, officially 1776. It's been a thing in this republic. Whether people want to admit to it or not. It's been a thing. So Vivek Ramaswamy said that he wants to, do a mass purge and fire everyone who has an odd ending Social Security number. Who do you don't think they're going to hire for the FBI, the CIA, all of these different, federal government jobs? Well, the first people putting in their application are going to be the people who stormed the Capitol building on January 6th. That's who Trump is going to hire to be your local police officers in Milwaukee. Yeah. We know. Derek Chauvin, you really believe that he wouldn't pardon Derek Chauvin? He's already said he wants to empower police to have complete immunity. Yeah. Because the dudes that were walking around with the Confederate flag, they're going to be on the local, state, and federal police forces all across America if he gets in there. He's going to pardon them, and they're going to go and apply for those jobs. And they'll most certainly get hired. Absolutely. Yeah. Well, it never stopped being the slave patrol, but they might actually even change the name back. This is how sick they are. They've been sick for centuries. There's no cure for that sickness. COVID is not the only thing that there's no cure for. So it has more implications than they're willing to state to us. This choice, this election, it has a lot of ramifications and implications for us. And the couch is not going to save folks from them people, from those monsters. It's not going to save us. Ultimately, we're going to have to take the stand and, defend ourselves from them. That's ultimately how this is going to really end for all of us. I've been knowing that. Yeah. Know what he allowed. People always ask me, what did he allow? He granted a permission slip for really the wretched, most hateful citizenry amongst us to do whatever they wanted to do to people who they already had a clear disdain and hatred for. That's what he did. He allowed them to act out what they wanted to do to people who they have a hatred for. Now, there's many, many people I don't like. I make no bones about that. But what's different about myself and these folks are that I don't go out of my way to show my disdain for people I don't like. I just tune you out, ignore you, and keep about doing what I gotta do. That's what they should do. And that's what they were doing for the most part until he came along and told them, no, you can do whatever you want to the folks who you don't like. So they're like, well, they hate certain people. And I always say the feeling's mutual. I don't like them either. Yeah, I just, don't go out of my way to, make it a big ordeal about my daily existence. It is what it is. But now it's to the point where people think that they can do whatever they want to people who they don't like. Things that they don't like. And therein lies the problem. Because prior to Trump, I never had to take as many precautions as I do now. Yeah. Bush supporters didn't bug me. Romney supporters didn't bug me. I mean, we didn't agree on very much or anything, but they didn't go out of their way to bug me. But MAGA, they've gone out of their way to, use violence as their primary mode to harass me. So I'm planning, and I've had to respond in kind. Because if somebody wants to commit violence towards me, I'm just talking personally for myself, I'm definitely going to commit violence towards you. Period. If you want to be angelic towards me, I'll be angelic towards you. If you want to be the demon towards me, I'll be a demon towards you. I just match your energy. That's all. I'm like the mirror. I hold up the mirror. You want to do some fuck shit to me, I'm going to try to do some fuck shit to you first. I'm not going to let you get the jump on me. And I can't say everything I want to say on here, but this is going to be an ugly and nasty summer, 2024. When you've got the former president saying that certain people who he doesn't like, who don't support him, will never support him, are horrible people. You know what time and what season we're on, in essence. People can try to pretend like they don't, or try to act as though they can avoid this. You can do all of those things, but that doesn't make it so, or the case. Yeah, this is it. I tell folks, 2024, this is it. This is for all the marbles. This is the big one. If they win, you know what they're going to do. And you know what I'm going to have to do. It is what it is. Because, I got contingency plans. I don't necessarily trust the Americans like that. I'm sorry, but, there's a record. And plus, he got elected. So, that should have never happened. And that's why the universe, in my opinion, gave you all COVID. Because the universe was like, don't put that kind of thing in charge of you. And you all went and did it. And so you had to be, you had to learn the hard way. And so the next time I feel like if it does happen, you're stubborn again, you'll get something far worse. 10, 100 times worse. And before he can get to the White House, I'm not going to say exactly where I would be, but I would be somewhere in preparation for war. Because I know that's what it would be. A war here at home amongst you all. You would ravage yourself. And then the establishment would want to start wars with other people around the planet. In terms of stealing their resources again. And we would have to protect other people's resources from a certain element of the American establishment. Because we're not going to allow that to happen again. For those of you who are unaware of what I'm referring to, I'm talking about colonialism. Yeah. Where they stole human beings and their property and their possessions. The murdering, raping, and pillaging of, by and large, the planet. By a certain segment of the planet. We don't have to be specific. But that would be the time that they're on again, if he was to become president. And we gotta match the energy. So some people have speculated where I would be, but I think some people know where I would go and what I would prepare for. and what I'm willing to do too. So, Milwaukee, I hope that you're a bulwark in defense of democracy, what we do have in this country. You know, it's not perfect. He came along and trampled on quite a bit of different groups of people's democracy, different groups of people's progress they had made, chipped away at, hard won progress. That's what he came along to dismantle. I would hope that, there would be a defense towards fascism, but, you know, I'm not putting all my eggs in that basket in 2024. Not at all. Yeah, there has to be a lot of horrible people to come out and, do what they need to do, take care of their business. I've said that next month, July, I'm planning to give a sizable donation and contribution to a local nonprofit organization that's BIPOC led, Block, BLOC. You know, they do a lot of grassroots activism in the community to get people politically motivated and engaged. And they operate year round, and I think that that's a good thing to do. They're headquartered in Milwaukee. You know, if Democrats want to win up and down the state of Wisconsin, I would recommend that they invest in organizations like Block. They know what they're doing. They do the work. They live in the community. They're amongst the people, know the people. So that's the folks that get the most resources, in my opinion, to do what's necessary to win. This is not going to be an easily fought or won campaign in 2024. This is not going to be easy at all. It can be done, but it's not going to be easy. And it most certainly won't be done if people, determine that it's not worth their time. It's not their concern or their problem or their issue. Because rest assured, it most certainly will be everyone's issue. That's for sure. A lot of people who voted in 2016 for Donald Trump never imagined that Kenosha, Wisconsin would be literally a community torn and ripped apart by his divisive administrative edicts, by his policies, by his choices, by his behavior. But rest assured, if he's re-elected, it won't just be Kenosha and Milwaukee, Racine and Madison. It'll be every community. Oshkosh, Green Bay, Detroit, Lansing, Grand Rapids, Joliet, Aurora, Evanston, Chicago. The whole entire republic will suffer mightily if that lunatic ever gains the presidency again. So, we got a choice, Milwaukee. Yeah. And they can say whatever the hell they want to about you all. But we know. You're wonderful according to me. You're horrible according to them. Just bear and keep that in mind as we get closer to November the 5th. Yeah. You know how they say, remember the 5th of November? Please do. Please, in fact, do. Victory, Milwaukee. We're not stopping until we get victory.